Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Romantasy Readers Podcast. I am Allie and I am joined by my lovely world-traveling co-host Nicole. And this is a super special episode because we haven't recorded properly in almost 3 months. It feels like maybe 2
months. It's crazy. We feel like we're catching up. Like we saw each other and it was just like,
I know,
like, oh my God, how are you? I'm just like verbal vomiting at her. I'm just
like, and we were like, wait, no, we need to save it for the podcast. We need to save it for the podcast. We've talked, of course. We send lots of voice memos all the time. And we did a small little mini episode on Iron Flame, but yeah, we haven't had a proper episode in our regular places with our setup.
I had all these grandiose ideas that I was going to be in Europe and I was going to post from over there, and I literally packed my recording equipment. And then I realized I was on holidays with 3 kids in tiny little apartments and it was loud and noisy and I was just way too distracted. So we got the Pencol interview in, which was amazing. And luckily I was in like a decent place with decent internet connection at the time. And then we got our little Iron Flame episode in because that was super important. But yeah, other than that, it just feels like we haven't seen each other. And I have so much to catch up on and so much to talk about. I'm so happy holiday was amazing, but I'm also super happy to be home. I was just saying to Allie, I'm a really bad reader when I'm on holidays. Like I'd be sitting around a pool and I'd see people reading books and I'm there thinking I should be reading and I just can't even concentrate. I need my home environment. I need my bath. I need my, relax zone to get into my book. So I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, it is. It really depends on the vacation for me. There are some vacations where I can read, and then there are some vacations where I cannot. I actually just got back myself from like a 2-week-long vacation. I did a little reading, but not a lot. Like I read one book, which to some people they're like, oh, you read a whole book on vacation. I'm like, no, that's nothing in 2 weeks. Normally I would read like 30 or something in that time frame.
Yeah. Well, and then what I did read, I don't know if I absorbed it as well as I would have if I was at home. Like even when I'm looking at this, because I read half of Goldfinch on my holiday and then the last part at home. And I'm like, am I even going to give this a fair review? Because I feel like everything I read on holidays, I was just a bit more just like, yeah, it was good, but I wasn't like super, like there was honestly 2 books I did not finish. I got like halfway through. I never not finish a book, like an Ellie Hazelwood book. I just couldn't finish it. I just didn't engage and I just carried it around most of Europe until I left it in Turkey and just said, I'm not going to finish this book and it can just stay here. And
wow. Yeah. An Ellie Hazelwood book. That's wild.
Yes, Ellie Hazelwood. What was it? It was one of her newer ones. It was like, I saw it at the airport. And it just, I don't know, the characters didn't grab me and I think I was just very distracted. I also read Quicksilver, which was amazing, but I probably I feel like if I'd been at home, I probably would have loved it even more than I did. Because I saw your reaction and I was like, yeah, it was good. Like I finished it.
No. You are going to have to reread it because I am obsessed with Quicksilver. We have to do it on the podcast.
I know, I agree. We need to get Callie Hart along.
Yes, we have got to get Callie Hart on here. And because she's now having that same kind of whirlwind experience that Pencol had where she published it indie, it got picked up, so we got to get her on before she gets too famous for us.
I know. And then she won't want to borrow us anymore.
I know, right?
So yeah, I think everything I read on holidays, I basically need to go and reread it because I don't think I absorbed like anything basically, but yes.
Yeah. Well, now that you're home, what are you reading? Are you reading anything right now?
Oh, yes, I am, Allie. I am reading your book, guys. So I finished Goldfinch.
I kind of knew that was going to be the answer. But
yeah. It was just like, what are you reading, Nicole? Like, And freaking hell, guys, like I'm just so you know, I don't know if I'm ever actually going to be able to write anything because now I'm going to have Allie's book to live up to. And she just delivered. Like, I'm not even lying here. She has delivered. Like, this is Danielle Jensen, like there's the world building that like there's like politics and there's like water, like I don't know how the water is plumbed into the castle and all this like intricate details. And I'm just like, freaking hell, Allie, this is your first book and this is a draft. Like I'm just like, Jesus, very impressive. I mean, I think you could even look at getting signed. Like I would be like, I mean, you're probably going to independent author, but I'm like, it's good enough that you could probably go out there and say, hey guys, would you like?
put a lot of thought into it. And I just think that going the indie route gets it into people's hands faster. It gets
Mhm.
me feedback faster. And then so many of these big book deals are happening from the indie published authors. I mean, look at some of our favorite books this year.
Yeah.
Spark of
Yeah.
the Everflame, indie published, got picked up. When the Moon Hatched, indie published,
Yep.
got picked up. Quicksilver, indie published, got picked up. So I'm just sort of feeling like maybe you
I
have
feel
more negotiating power if you can really get a following. So
100%.
that's what
Well,
I'm
I
trying to do.
think it's kind of becoming the new way, isn't it? With social media, with the, the romantasy, TikTok, bookstagram, kind of everything happening, we are able to identify great indie books so much easier now.
Yeah.
And so they do get into the hands, and literally it's the readers dictating what they like. And then basically, rather than, on all honest truth, when a publisher sends me a book, I kind of look at it and go, how do I even know if I want to read this? Like,
Right.
I haven't heard anything about it. I don't know if I'm going to like it or not. Whereas if I see other bookstagrammers or TikTokers saying, love this book, got to read it, I'm picking that book up and I'm reading it, regardless of whether it's indie or with a publisher. So I think that
Absolutely.
you're right on the money. Get it out there. Get that feedback from your beta readers, from real readers, and I'm sure we'll all be excited to have another little romantasy book to read.
Yeah. And just listeners, you guys are going to have to help. You're going to have to help me make it a big book if you like it.
But no, I'm seriously though. I'm seriously. I'm not lying. I'm not just being nice to Alley and going, "Oh, it's such a nice book." Like it's actually really, really good. Like you just take it, read the first couple of chapters, and you're gonna get what I mean. It's got detail. It's beautifully written. I am never going to be able to live up to that. My book would be all messy, but like the vibes would be there, and that's like you'd be like, that's where I would be.
No.
So
You're very, very
amazing.
kind. And when you write your book, because I know that you're going to do it, it's going to be so good. And I'll be a beta reader for you. I'll be an alpha. I'll read it chapter by chapter. It'll be so good.
I'm just going to need your help. I'm just going to be like, Alley, help me. I'm like stuck. I don't know how to do this. Help me. But yes, no.
The hardest part is like I knew how it would begin. I knew how it would end. It's like, and then like I had some critical scenes like very clear in my mind. Like there were certain scenes that were super clear, but it's like getting from there to the end is what's really hard. And what's so weird is I'm thinking about book 2 right now. And it's like, I actually know the middle of book 2, but I don't really know how it starts or how it ends. So it's like the opposite experience.
Yeah. And I would love to pick your brain to know how you got around that because, I'm sure other people are the same. I have ideas and I've actually started writing out a skeleton and I'm a big, like when I've tested, like, how you test your personality and I'm like a big picture thinker. So I've got those big, like I want a villain to lovers or I want, this kind of main character or like I have the big epic, like what the whole 3 trilogy series is going to be about, but breaking that down into, right, so how do I get the FMC from here to there to here, and how do I keep it entertaining along the way? Those are the bits that are a bit more interesting. But
I'll give you all my tips when you interview me as a published author.
That's right. It's coming soon, guys. Coming soon. The other thing that I should jump into. What have you been reading? That's what I've been reading. What have you been reading?
I was going to tell you. So I I'm reading Reign of Rose. It's the 3rd book in that Dawn of Onyx series. So it's the finale.
Oh, yes.
I read Dawn of Onyx like a year ago, like right when it came out, because it was really hyped. I personally didn't love it. But then I hadn't really been paying attention. And then on my vacation, I was like, you know what? I really wanted like a low stakes book on my vacation that I didn't care a ton about, And so then I read this book and I would like book 2, Promise of Peridot is so good, like so good. So then I was really excited for Reign of Rose. So I'm like a third of the way through that. I just started it, but it's good so far. I'm really enjoying it.
That's great. That's great. Well, the other thing that I did a fair bit while I was away, which I wanted to talk about, was I watched The Rings of Power. So obviously I wasn't very good at reading, but I did have some spare time. And I was like, well, I'm going to watch some TV shows and things like that. And I want to talk about it because so I did not like the first season at all.
I absolutely hated it. I thought it was terrible. I was like, this is how you blow millions and millions of dollars as a TV.
How did you spend this much money, with the exception of inflation? How did you spend this much money and end up with this piece of crap? Like that's basically like I was like, the acting is horrid.
So pretty. The set designs were gorgeous, but I just found everything about it just fell flat. for me.
Yes.
The writing, the characters, the story. I never got myself into it, and I really, really disliked it. So I have not watched season 2 because
Yeah,
I was
well, I
like,
was
I'm
the
not missing
same,
out on my
and I
time.
really would just do anything to replace the actress that plays Galadriel, because she drives me nuts the way she speaks. It's very
Yeah.
hammy acting. A lot of the acting and the writing wasn't amazing, but I did soften over the second season. So I say probably didn't have a lot to watch. So I was watching this, and in truth, I was watching the first episode, which is still a little bit, I feel like it got better as it went along. And my daughter walked in, listened to Galadriel say one line, just started laughing, and then just walked back out of the room again. That was like the level. But once you get to about episode 3, 4, it really gets into the story, and I actually enjoyed it by the end. And a lot of the reason I enjoyed it was because there was so much villains to lovers kind of vibes going on between, well, Galadriel and Sauron and Ada. And I'm just like, what is this? And I'm just like, I am here for a villain to lover story. Allie, this is practically my favorite genre.
Yeah.
Like, so even when I know it's going to be PG Lord of the Rings, I'm still there for it. I'm still there, like secretly hoping that they're just going to go off track and just end up making it a love story, but it's not going to happen. But I was here for it, and I was so into it. And yeah, so I actually really enjoyed it. So I'm highly recommending that you read that, watch it.
Yeah.
I think another thing that has been discussed online, which is a bit crazy, and Ali's going to probably have some opinions on this as well, is that many people are saying that the Rings of Power season 2 was better than House of the Dragon season 2.
That is crazy. That is a wild opinion. But I can't weigh in because I haven't watched Rings of Power. I keep wanting to say Lords of Power.
I know, I switch it around in all sorts of ways. Yep.
I have not watched Rings of Power, although I will say I have mixed feelings about season 2 of House of the Dragon. I thought it was excellent, and then I thought it ended really weird, and it's like so obvious that they ran out of money. So it's
ran out of money.
They did. They got over budget.
Yeah.
And then
they said like, we're just cutting 2 episodes or something.
They're like, okay, I guess this is where we have to cut it off because we spent all our money. Like, that's what it felt like.
That's just nuts. And it's so bad. Like, you feel like HBO, like this actually makes me worried about if we allowed them to have our baby like Sarah J Maas, like Akatar, because you can't be like, oh, we got to this point, we ran out of money, so sorry, we're going to bring it next season.
They run out of money like right when she's in Mist and Fury, and like he's like, oh yeah, the serial's like, go talk to your mate, and then it's like over. Can you
and you're like, wait, we're not even up to the last 100 pages. Like, you can't stop it right here. We're just about, and that's what House of the Dragon felt like. It felt like we like kind of got a couple of really good episodes, but then the last 2 episodes practically fell really, really flat, and just sort of nothing happened. And it was like, that felt like an episode 4 or 5, not an episode, not the final episodes.
It was like just season finale. Like, I know that's not a thing anymore, but like back in the early aughts, 2000s and like 2010s, like seasons would start in the fall, end in the spring, and you kind of have this like middle period over Christmas where they sort of do this like kind of finale, but not really, and then they pick it back up. It felt like a mid-season finale, like we should still have 8 more episodes.
Yeah.
So it was very strange.
Very strange.
I'm curious if the listeners are interested in us like doing an actual episode on House of the Dragon, Rings of Power, some combination, because that could be fun. Like it's still fantasy, kind of romantasy. You kind of have some enemies to lovers in House of the Dragon, so maybe let us know what you want.
Even talking about every kind of movie, TV show that is bringing us elements of our romantasy genre or romance. I'm a bit obsessed with, I want to see this, what's it called? Is it Baby Girl? Is it Baby Girl? But the new Nicole Kidman film that's coming out. It's a bit like
anything about that.
Like 50 Shades of Grey, but imagine Nicole Kidman is this CEO, and there's this young intern that comes in, and he's all like BDS. He's all like I'm going to control you, drink this glass of milk. And then she like has to do it. And then she's all controlled by him. This like it's just a whole power play and it looks amazing. I'm just like
so into that. I'm so
exactly.
I'm going to like Google that as soon as we're done recording.
Yeah, seriously do. Like, sorry, that was just like such a sidetrack. That has nothing to do with the Rings of Power or House of the Dragon.
Or Goldfinch, which eventually we're going to talk about.
It's about like romance and spice, and I want more of it in my TV shows and movies, just like I want it in more of my books. So for me, like anything that kind of is exploring that, as I say, I'm even enjoying the Rings of Power just because there is just the hint at like the romance. There's a hint of it. Star Wars, there's this hint of it with Kylo Ren and Rey, and I eat it up. So I'm just like, please give us more. But yeah, if you want to hear more, let us know and we'll create some episodes for you. We'll explore it deeper.
Yeah. I think this did come up because you do find a connection between Rings of Power and Goldfinch.
I do. Which is maybe ridiculous and people may not agree with me at all.
I'm with you.
I just got vibes. And this is a villain in the Rings of Power. And this is the character that plays Arda. Now, not in season 1. A new actor came into it in season 2, and he is like 10,000 times better than the first one.
Yeah.
So you need to go and see that. But yeah, his name, which I think I put here somewhere, he is, oh my God, what's his name? But yeah, he plays Arda, and he is just like Slade, King Ravenger. He's got like, because he's kind of like half orc, half like elf, fae. He's got like a bit of rot kind of going on, but he's also super good looking, and he's got like this good heart underneath the villain. And then there's a bit of romance vibes between him and Galadriel at the very end. And I'm just like, oh my God. And obviously I've been reading Goldfinch and I'm just looking at him and I'm just going, it's like I'm looking at Slade. It's like
his name is Sam Hazeldine. That's his name.
Yes. So go check. Look, he's a little bit older. Okay. Like, but yeah. For me, I'm like,
in the show, I haven't watched the show, but Nicole sent me pictures on WhatsApp. He has like, I don't want to give too many spoilers, but he has these like little kind of vein things in his face, which is very much the villain / hero / MMC of the Played Prisoner series, Slade. So
I know, because you know how like Slade has all the veins and everything, the rot, and it's like if I kind of imagined what that looks like in real life, this character Arda is kind of the closest you would get. He's also super villain, like he's like super villain, but he's doing it for his own reasons, which is really explored in in season 2, and it's actually from a really loving place. So as I said, very similar vibes. Go check it out. Give us your feedback. Am I on the money or am I way off? Maybe he's too old, but and then you know what? And he had a great chin. Oh my God. I'm such a sucker for a good chin.
See, it's not necessarily the chin, but it's just like the whole jaw. The effect of the whole jawline for me is very important. Yeah.
It's just that. And then, you know, into like the fae, the elf ear, the fae ear, it's just perfection. So I love it. So yeah, go check that out and give us your thoughts.
Okay. So it's time officially, 20 minutes in almost, to talk about Goldfinch. As always, the first part will be spoiler free. So if you have not read this series, we're going to talk to you a little bit about the series without giving too many spoilers, so you can decide if you want to watch it, listen, read it. Oh my God.
Hey, how long until the audiobook comes out? I've heard the first couple of audiobooks of the Played Prisoner series are insanely good. So
I don't know.
I'm sure it'll be available.
I haven't listened because I've always read them because I've just I've always read them on my Kindle. So I don't know, but that would be.
And I like saw on Instagram somewhere someone saying you cannot give me those first 3 books like done by this guy who's doing the audio and then take that away from me and not do the rest of the series. So pretty sure he's got a sexy voice. Like let's just say
I'm gonna need to look that up after we record.
I feel like I need to as well.
But
professional reasons.
So Goldfinch, for those of you who don't know, is book 6 in the Plated Prisoner series, and it's completed. So it is not often that you get a completed 6-book series in the romantasy genre that is super good, great spice, great worlds, like everything about it hits. So this is, if you have not read this series, it's like one of my favorite series. And in fact, it's like one of the first books, the first series that like I told Nicole to read and then we covered on the podcast. I think we had just done like Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, and then I think Gold might have been our very first like one-off book, which is
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
exciting.
Yes. And we literally, that episode was like cursed because my sound was atrocious. My microphone didn't work and it was scratchy and it was horrible. I apologize to everyone's ears in advance. Like if you've gone back and watched that, it was not, the sound was not amazing.
It was early days. We were still learning.
It was early days. We've come a long way since then. We only had a few technical issues this morning.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how this episode's going to sound because we did have some technical issues because we've been away from it for 3 months, but hopefully it sounds okay.
Hopefully it comes through.
Is better than that Gold episode.
Yeah. But we did cover some great theories in that episode, and we are going to explore those theories today and how they actually matched up with what ended up happening in Goldfinch. So that's something that I'm really excited to do today. And it's really nice that this is the first time we're kind of getting that follow-up from a previous episode to be able to say, well, this is what we thought was going to happen, this is what we theorized. How did it match up when we actually got the book? Like what ended up happening? So that's going to be really exciting.
I know. Have you read any of her other series?
No.
Me neither.
No.
Yeah, me neither.
But I got one of my good Instagram friends onto her and she just devoured these books, absolutely loved them. And then she went and read everything else as well. So she has definitely encouraged me to go and read them. But it's definitely like on the TBR that I've got to go read some other books. But I mean, I've just been so in love with this particular series that it's going to take me a little bit of time to move away from this series and go, okay, I'm ready to try something else. Yeah. How about you?
No, I haven't. But she does have like, I think 2 other series. One of them is like, I think it's like YA, but the main other one that I know of that I haven't read, but I've heard is really good. It's called the Heart Hassle series. And it's like a Cupid retelling, but with Fae. So it sounds really good. And it's like a why choose romance, which from Raven Kennedy, just knowing the spice that she writes, I feel like would be really good if you're into why choose.
Oh my God. Because like, guys, I think if you're considering Raven Kennedy, just know that her spice is probably, for me currently, would be the epitome of spice. It's like really she good. Just nails it. It's like Goldilocks level, but a bit more, little bit gritty, but just the right amount. Like just just hitting the mark perfectly. For spice, she is probably my gold go-to.
Yeah. And she's always giving little ginger candies. You know how I love my little ginger treat. She's always doing that, which is good. So it is really good. What are some comparable series how do you compare it to other books?
Yeah, well, I've sort of said, like, look, it's got its own unique flavor, especially because this particular series is all around a King Midas retelling.
Yeah.
I've kind of said Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerry Maniscalco is similar with kind of the villain vibes, that sort of thing. I've got Rhapsodic by Laura Thalassa. I think that's another really good series. This particular book is so similar to Kingdom of Ash for me. Like this, and I guess the way that we're getting, like where our main character is at the beginning of this book, what we're getting through, I feel like it's a very similar sort of telling to kind of the Kingdom of Ash, with where our character begins and kind of where our characters end. But how about you? What do you think?
I kind of like to say that it's almost like SJM meets Jennifer Armentrout, because it's got that very like character driven growth, very like intense epic love story that SJM likes to do, with a little bit of the grittierness that Jennifer Armentrout likes to write. So like it's a little bit more adult, a little bit grittier, but I just, my favorite thing about this series is how the characters grow from where they start to where they are, especially the female characters. It's just, that's what I appreciate so much about it.
You get this great sort of fae magical world, but then it's really actually quite character driven. It's how they banter with each other, how they grow, how they develop. It's an excellent, excellent journey that they go on. Probably a tiny bit simpler, I would say, than SJM. like
Yeah, a
from the
little bit.
story perspective. Like there's
Mhm.
still a lot of story, but it also kind of it's I guess for someone that maybe they feel a little heavy for you, this is probably just that little bit lighter where you can, I know you just get through it faster. You get through it faster, you get to the entertaining parts quicker, that sort of thing. I think it's very entertaining reading. And for anyone that does like SJM, Jennifer Armentrout, and that go and read this, you will not be
You won't.
disappointed.
Yeah, you'll love it. You'll love it. I do have to just shout myself out because I got my first PR package for Goldfinch. And I just like that was just like a great Bookstagram moment for me because I've gotten a lot of free ebooks and I have started to get hard books as well.
Mhm.
But this was the first like actual PR package where I got the book. It came with like a gold face mask. It came with
Amazing.
um like a cute little like necklace. It just came with so many cute things. And I it was so fun to
It
unopen.
just
And I
makes
had no idea that it was
all
it
of
was
this that we've done completely worth it because you're
completely worth it because of that gold face mask.
that's right. I was so jealous. I was just in Europe feeling insanely jealous. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's got a PR package. It's so hard when you're in Australia. You like your chances are so limited. I've had a couple of books sent. That's most generally it's ebooks because they just don't want to send it this far. And I get it. It's fair enough. It's probably going to be super expensive. But
Yeah.
it's like, oh, they look so pretty.
Yeah, I know. It was a great PR package. So, just, thanks Raven Kennedy, thanks Nerd Fam for giving me that PR package.
Yeah.
I felt like I had really made it, It
Yeah.
was great.
Well, yeah, I, on the other hand, was in Turkey and it was insanely hard to get anything. Like, even trying to get the ebook was really hard because when you're overseas now, goddamn two-factor authentication because it would always be like, we want to send you we want to make sure you're really you. We're going to send this to your phone number. And I'm like, I'm not using my phone number because I'm in Europe and it doesn't work here.
Yeah.
So it was so like it's like half the time I can't use Amazon, half the time I can't use half my normal stuff. So I had to get my IT husband to work his magic because I'm like, I need this book. Like it's out. I need it. I need it. Like I'm gonna spend $50. Like I don't care. And anyway, he helped me get it. So that was great. But it was not easy. But I was very happy just to have my ebook. I can't wait to go and buy myself like the whole set. Like I want to go find a beautiful set and it needs to go here somewhere in the background because they're so pretty and I can't wait to have my hands on it.
I know. They're really pretty. Um, we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but how do you typically like what do you think make this series different? We've talked a little bit about the spice. It's like 4 out of 5 spice. So it's pretty
Mhm.
spicy, a little bit kinky, dirty,
Yeah.
gritty, I think is a good way
Mhm.
to describe it. Um, I do think the Fae are very different from what we're used to seeing. Like they're not just humanoids, they're Fae
Yeah.
who have wings, who have different colored skin. Like it's kind of cool to see that different imagining of like
Yeah.
fairies and
Yeah.
Fae.
I
Anything you would
think
add?
Yeah, I think that the biggest, well, first of all, it was the King Midas retelling. I think I
That's
haven't
it.
seen that explored before. So that was so great to have this main character that's gold. We've got this king with the gold power, or so we think. And it was a really interesting way of, you say, it just introduced this new world. I think it still had a lot of our traditional tropes that we love in romantasy. So you're not stemming too far away from the kind of worlds that we love, but exploring it in a new way, which was really good. I say very, very character driven. We had some characters right from the beginning that we hated, and we had characters that were being controlled by those bad characters, and then we had potential good characters coming into it down the track. I think, look, I've said to you many times, one of my favorite tropes, one of my favorite arcs is kind of villains to lovers. And I feel like this is quite a villains to lovers. I even saw that they called this a dark romantasy. And I love that. It's dark, but in like there's kind of dark romance that's really kind of aggressive and not really my jam, but that's not this. This is more just like a dark, maybe like almost a little bit scary kind of, but and also very spicy, but in a good way.
Yeah.
And I really like that. I say she is the epitome of spice for me. So I just can't speak enough about that.
Yeah. Um, I love that it's a little bit grittier, a little bit darker. Um, yeah, I think it's a great series. So
Yeah.
any
And I
other
love
final Go ahead.
Yeah. Wait, we're still in the spoiler free zone, aren't
Yeah,
we? So we
yeah,
kind of
I was
can't
gonna
go
ask if you had
too
other
much
any final
in.
thoughts.
Yeah, the only not that I'm going to assume that people that are listening to this have maybe sort of read the first books and maybe just haven't read the very final Goldfinch book, because otherwise, like, hurry up and go do that now.
Yeah,
But
go read
there's
it.
just that real character trauma to healing, like
Yeah.
sort of almost the exploration of like Stockholm syndrome and being very manipulated, and then finding yourself and growing
Mhm.
yourself. That growth journey that is just so beautiful to see. I love seeing that in my books, and it's done really, really well throughout this whole series.
It definitely is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have one random thought, unrelated.
Yeah.
I saw someone online say that they would fan cast Gigi Hadid as Auron, and I'm, like, really into it. I was like, "Oh, yeah, I
Mm.
can totally see that."
Have we like seen Gigi Hadid in like gold at some point? I feel like I
I'm
have
sure
seen,
we
I don't know
have.
if she's been in a Maybelline ad or something and she's just been painted gold, because I feel like I've seen that and I love it. I
I'm
love it. I
literally
could
just
just
gonna Google right now Gigi Hadid gold and see what happens. Oh,
see.
such OMG. There's okay, there's, like, one where it's kind of edited and she looks like she's also all gold. Um, so yeah, definitely. If you just
Mhm.
Google Gigi Hadid gold and go to, like, images search, you will see some great options.
Yeah, yeah. And she'd be such a good Oren. Like, I think
She'd
that's
be a
kind of
great Lauren.
100% how I feel. Like, super stunning, beautiful, all gold. Like, that would be the epitome. I was
Yeah.
also thinking of, when I was overseas, I happened to see the Rihanna's Umbrella, music, like, video,
Uh-huh,
which I haven't
uh-huh.
watched in forever. And then there's a scene in that where she's like kind of gold. She's fully cold gold from head to toe. And I was just like, ooh, Oren vibes. Like,
That would
so
be
that
cool
was a
too.
really good one as well. So
Yeah, cool. We're
yeah.
not doing a full fan cast, but just like a little tiny
But
fan
yeah,
cast.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just a great little fun fact. Yeah,
To
go
help
check it out.
hopefully
Definitely.
hopefully help the readers who have not read this get excited. So,
No.
are we ready for the spoiler zone? I think we're ready.
100%.
So, if you have not
100%.
read Goldfinch up through the end of Goldfinch, hop off now, go read the books because they're incredible, and then come back and finish the episode. All right. I think we're going to start with some of our theories that we predicted in our last episode and what was correct and what was not. So, what other theories do we have? I didn't have to
So,
listen to the episode, so I'm like, I
okay,
don't even
okay.
remember.
So I'm gonna assume maybe you watched the episode, maybe you haven't. As I said, sound was pretty bad, so you'd be forgiven if you hadn't listened to it. I predicted that Slade had wings.
Ooh,
Which, because like in the scene where they kind of become, well, I guess we theorize that they become a pair,
yeah.
that there's like a ripping on his sides and then something sprouts out. Which we of course know what that is now, but at the time I did not know what that meant, and now I'm just like, oh, okay. I predicted with these things on the sides that we were looking at wings. So that was my first theory, but
I think
yeah.
I think you pretty much are close enough. Like, I don't know that there was any way to think that it was gonna be a dragon. Like,
No.
that was, like, kinda out of nowhere, to the point that I was like, "Did she just add this because dragons are
Talking.
popular right now?" Like,
She was just like,
I don't know that there
insert
was foreshadowing at
dragon.
all. Yeah.
That dragon came out of nowhere. I was
Yeah.
just like, and in truth, we hadn't had any foreshadowing or anything. I
No.
don't think we'd ever said anything about a dragon, anything about a shadow dragon. Not that I was 100% here for it once it was here. I
Oh,
was
yeah.
just like, I was completely blindsided. I was just like, what? Dragon? I was just like, whoa. I was
Yeah.
like, not what I was expecting. And
And
then,
go ahead. I think I know what you're gonna say next. Yeah.
what? So the person that ends up with wings is Oren. And like, did you predict? I actually got like, how did I not think that that was a possibility with the ribbons? I don't know, but I
I know.
never thought that that was actually what was going to happen.
I feel like I thought she would fly. But I don't know that I necessarily was like, she's gonna have wings. I just kinda thought she would just kind of like that her ribbons would kind of like help her float in
Float
the air
her
or
in the
something. So I think I was like, yeah, she's probably gonna fly just because like that prophecy kind of made it sound like she was gonna fly, but I didn't actually think about that the ribbons would turn into wings.
No, it was such a shock. So the other thing I want to talk about is because actually, do you want to hear? I screenshotted this just so I could talk about it. Was how they did the pair in gold, and I guess where I thought maybe it was wings, but I was wrong. But hey, it's like, you tell me this doesn't kind of sound like it when you didn't know what we know now. So this is Oren's. I gasp, breathe, the air of Anwin, the air of Oria. I pitch backwards, the beast and the seed surge, combine. My back heats. Rot delves, not with death but rebirth. Life tears free. Two souls reach out, clasp. My ears echo with two heartbeats. With a bonded song, my aura flares, changes. I can feel him. Okay, that's Oren. This is Slade. I gasp. I consent her warmth, it consumes me. My knees buckle. My rotting heart suddenly swells, bursts. Something shifts. My two sides, they mend. Something else tears free. That was my wings moment, guys. That was my wings. Yeah. Something else tears free. Scales erupt over my chest, bursting from what I thought was my dying heart. A roar sounds in my ear, soul tether. My aura pulses, changes. I can feel her. That was... What do you think?
That sounds like wings. That totally sounds like wings.
Yes. Thank you.
I love all the little, like, poetry that she sprinkles through these books. It's really fun, and it just adds this, like, different, unique thing and imagery, and I really enjoy all the little poetry she has.
I have to admit, I loved going back and looking at that and now going, oh, that must have been the dragon. And yes, and the other thing that kind of got me when I started to read this was because I think, and tell me if I felt like we went back in time just a little bit, and then we kind of had to catch up to that moment where they connected.
I think so.
Like, and I got a little bit confused with that initially, just because I was kind of like, oh wait, we've gone back. Like, I thought we were picking up right where we left off, and it took me a little bit to realize that we'd maybe
more, like, we get to see it more fully from Slade's perspective, because like we actually see, like, his heart bursting. He thinks he's dying. Like, he's like, oh my God, I'm not going to get to her. I'm dying. And actually that's not what's happening. So
he's giving birth to a baby dragon, a shadow dragon.
Yeah. Shadow dragon. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it, but the dragon.
No, come on, get it out there. What are your thoughts? You got dragon. I can tell.
It did not deserve the life that it was given. It's like a tiny little baby. It's so cute, and then it, like, grows up, and it finally becomes, like, corporeal, and then boom, it dies. It's just so sad.
Like that whole scene, which I'm probably going to talk about later, with Slade's dad, just like tore me up so much, and it kind of made me so angry as well, because I was just like, what, he just has this magical webbing that they can't get out of, like, what the hell? And then the dragon, and then it dying, and it was very traumatic. And I would almost say it was unnecessary, except that it was a finale book and it had to have a lot of drama. So
yeah, I wish more aspects had been foreshadowed. That's like, we always skip ahead in our, like, categories, but, like, if there's anything I would change, I just feel like a lot of things, like, I don't feel like the dragon was foreshadowed. That magical webbing, like, you could have easily foreshadowed that, like, I don't know. And it's tough,
that he was
right?
like collecting something, and we didn't know what, and why was he collecting this magic or something, and then it was all part of his master plan. Like, it did just kind of get thrown in,
where his dad had used that webbing before or something. But you got to add drama, and it was dramatic, and it was like, oh my gosh, what was happening? That doesn't deteriorate or anything, but I just, like, personally wish a little bit more had been foreshadowed.
Yeah, well, and I think we did need that, because we had two main characters that were so ultimately powerful that sort of no one could compare to them. So we did need a way to weaken them. As you say, a little foreshadowing just sprinkled in here and there would have made it perfection, would have absolutely made it perfection, because then we could have seen that. But yeah, the other thing I really wanted to talk about, because we talked about this in our last episode, and that was the prophecy about the three queens. So because we had a big discussion about this and what we theorized it was going to be, and I think we definitely got answers by the end of this about what this three queens prophecy was going to be. Now, would you like me to read over this just to refresh?
I do not remember the three queens prophecy.
I screenshot it in advance just to be prepared. Okay, three queens. Okay. There once were 3 queens inside 2 different lands, past, present, and void, to whom destiny hands. 3 queens were declared, but only one born. She was the ice that looked on in scorn. The others were brought through a bridge she was made. When her fate fell, the goddess bade. The last was a vine who reached through the split. Guilt come to reign, fates come to knit. Together they were, apart they would be, but these different queens heard the song of the 3. And that ballad it played like a whisper or drum, it sang in their ears with a pulse and a thrum. The stars above they watched and they waited. Divine gripped the bridge and fed snow into jaded. They tipped back the sun and outhatched the gold-plated. That is how the 3 were then fated. There once were 3 queens, but one thing about them the same. These 3 were reborn and with magic they claimed. So we predicted, I think last time, if I'm correct, we'll try and figure out who the 3 queens were. We felt pretty certain that we were talking about Melina, that we were talking about Oren, and that we were talking about previously, oh my God, who was Oren originally? Sarah Turley. Yeah.
Sarah, it's some weird spelling of the name Sarah. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, Sarah, however it was. Yeah. But yeah, what do you think now, having read Goldfinch? Do you feel like we were correct in that theory?
We were right. I think we were right. I think it's interesting how little we actually ended up learning about Sarah Turley and how she was like relevant to the prophecy. Maybe there isn't a third queen that I can think
it has to be her. Yeah, especially because they all kind of traveled over to, and they kind of said that 2 kind of traveled over the bridge, or like one through the tear, and then obviously Melina, it talks sort of about this jaded ice queen and that they gave her the ice power. So I think it's pretty obvious that that's Melina.
And it was past, present, and void. So past is Sarah Turley.
Yes.
Present is Melina. And void is Aaron, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of burst from.
She was kind of deleted from until she came back.
Cool. Yeah. We were right.
I'm going to take it as like we had it correct. I'm just going to like take that one and say, yes, we were correct. But yeah, so then I guess another thing, which was kind of, I guess, fairly obvious, I think, from Gold, but we'll just confirm. Slade and Oren are a pair. So
yeah,
we had that correct.
Yeah, we had that correct. But I think pretty much everyone, we kind of already knew that was going to be.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if anyone had not picked up on that. I think it was pretty obvious from Gold that was where we were going. We just didn't know how well they were going to be post that, because Slade did not look like he was in a good way at the time. So that was kind of.
And we knew that Aaron was lost her memory. So we were like, okay, how are they going to come back together? Yeah. And then I think we also had talked a little bit, like we were like, are Osric and Rissa gonna be together? Is Rissa gonna survive? And they did, and they were, which is I'm so happy because I love them.
Yes. I adored these 2. Like, Gold hurt me so much because the entire book is just Osric sitting at her bedside watching her die, which was just super traumatic. So it was very surprising that in this one we ended up getting that resolution really quite early in the book, very, very fast, which I'm going to talk about in a little while because I do have feelings about that. Yeah. But it was, definitely super satisfying. I wanted those 2 to be together, and I'm really glad that Osric did not waste time. Once he was here, he was just like, yeah, this is on. This is on like Donkey Kong, like, we're together.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move in then to some of our favorite and least favorite, or best and worst scenes in the book. You go first because I think this is related, but what is one of your like favorite scenes in the book?
Well, Osric and Rissa was one of the first ones. I loved these 2. I could have probably done with even more of them, but I understand that would have required the book to be even larger than it already is. But I just, after the pain of Gold, I needed these 2 to come together, and they so did. So I absolutely loved how they connected and how they came together, and really at an earlier point in the book where they really didn't waste any time. But I think when you think about
pretty like at least the first 20% of the book. It was
I
like
actually went back just this morning to be like, because I actually wanted to pick out a few lines from that area, and it's like page 30 or something. Like, it is super early. Like, basically we just get like, hey, welcome to the world. Here they are getting back together. So, but it's so true to Osric's like personality, because he's such a bear. He's such a,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and he's such a dragon. He's such a like a, you're mine and I'm keeping you, and you're mine now. I'm going to bury you and keep you here. And she's just like, no, I'm an independent woman. You can't make me do that. But he's like, no, he's going to pick me anyway. And then she's like,
he's like, so, it's definitely like that very commanding presence. And which is great, because I don't know that we like, Slade is like just way too in love with Arin to do that.
Yeah, that's right.
To like order her around.
That's right. It's a bit more sassy. It's a bit more a sassy relationship, which I really love. But let's go back and forth. What's one of your favorite best scenes?
Okay, so similarly, my favorite scene in the entire book is when they see each other in Anwin for the first time. I will say, and the reason I love it is because I personally hate magical amnesia trope. It really irks me. I feel like it's like a lazy way to like rebuild the tension with the characters and have them like go through the slow burn again. What I loved is she didn't actually use magical amnesia to make slow burn between them. They didn't have to like relearn each other. As soon as Arin saw Slade, she knew who he was.
Yeah.
Loved that. And then that spice scene that comes after it is so good.
Oh,
it is like so good. It is Goldilocks. It is perfect. I loved it. Loved everything about it.
Just from like they get in the boat, and they've got that like they've just become mates vibe thing where they like can't keep their hands off each other. Like their bodies are just like, we need to connect immediately for like a whole week straight. And so then they end up starting to like hook up in the boat, which luckily is kind of private. And then they end up getting to the beautiful private cottage, and then they like get to have like a whole week in the cottage just connecting on a mate's pair level. And it was perfect. It was perfection. It was everything I would expect from Raven Kennedy, knowing that she knows how to deliver us perfect spice scenes, and it did not disappoint.
All right. Do you have another favorite scene?
Well, I then talk a bit about, I guess, some of the worst but best scenes. I think something that like really hurt, but I guess it's in a good way, was Arin dying. This was, it freaking hurt, because as if Arin hasn't been through enough, it drives me bananas. But it caused the pain that it needs to cause. Like, I was in so much pain and agony going, this can't really be true. Like, probably the only thing was that I just truly did not believe it was even true. I was just like, nah, there's no way she's dying. She's coming back. Like, I don't think Raven's going to give us this kind of tragic ending. But just the pain it causes Slade, and then for her to then transition, to get her wings, to then fly and come back, like that was really beautiful and definitely like that perfect sort of epic ending.
What I felt was so well done about that scene is, we're readers, we're reading romantasy. We know there's going to be a happily ever after, at least for our main characters. So we know she's going to come back. But what I loved is having a real moment with Slade, right? Yes. Like, he carries her for days and days thinking she is dead, and not coming back. And that to me really made it hit home in a way that like other, like Feyre's death, Rhys's death, don't really do for you, because they immediately come back. And so even just giving us that one chapter where he's carrying her body in this like funeral procession and all the people are following her, I mean, that is just some epic storytelling that I loved.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And I think like, and as I looking at Arin in this, and this is where I compare it a little bit to Kingdom of Ash, and how when she starts, she is going through that amnesia, which yes, is frustrating, but I do it's frustrating, but I also appreciate the fact that I like how she brought it in that there was actually someone that had this particular power, and it like kind of broke into her mind. So bits and pieces were all missing. But we have her kind of trapped in a, not in a cage, but in a prison cell, and she can't remember anything, but she's still got this sense of herself. And I love how she actually gets herself out of it. How she actually, it wasn't actually this time, it wasn't about Slade coming to rescue her. She actually ends up getting herself out of that situation before he actually comes and rescues her, which I think was so good for her growth as a character.
Absolutely. Okay, I have another best scene, which is when Slade's dragon first comes out as like a big real dragon, and he like breathes rot fire or just rot, like that was so cool. And he's just like blasting all the Fae coming from Anwin in Sixth Kingdom with rot. I was just like, oh, this is epic. Like I always see like pictures in my head as I'm reading, but like sometimes there's ones that are really, really visceral. Like I can almost see it like a movie, and that was one of the ones that I could see like a movie.
I mean, dragons are never ever a bad thing, like ever. And just to have that, it was just like Shadow Daddy, Shadow Dragon, then Rot Dragon, and it was just so much power, so awesome. And when we're really angry at these characters, it was exactly what we needed, just that pure villain decimation of everyone except her. He's just on a one-way mission to save his girl, and I was here for it. And
I'm just going to kill these Fae on my way. I'm not even gonna
don't even care. I'm just going to like a whole line. You're going to know how I got there because it's going to be a line of fire and destruction. So
yeah. Do you have any more best scenes that you want to talk about, or do you have?
It's kind of one of those best bad sort of scenes, a scene that really hurt, but I'll explain why I feel this is important. And that was Melina and Dominic dying. Now, I predicted as soon as they had this intimate, loving spice scene, they had this really like emotional, romantic spice scene. I was like,
ice house or whatever.
Yeah, I was like, oh, she's gonna die. I was like, she's gonna die, because that was way too romantic. Like, it was like it was giving us the hint of goodbye. I was like, this is not boding well. But then, obviously Melina being the one who could break the bridge and give herself to break the bridge, and her making that decision, it hurt so much. Like, and I hated, like, as much as I hated Melina through most of the book, she had grown on me in the last book. I actually had started to really like her, and I loved her relationship with Dominic. And that death, with both of them dying together to break the bridge, to save, Oria, the human realm, was really, really painful and beautiful in the same way. I actually, as much as I hate it, I love a bit of tragedy in stories. I feel like characters do need to die. As much as I want everyone to have a happy ending, it doesn't feel real. And for me to really connect to a story, there needs to be pain, real, lasting pain. So I kind of am happy that Raven did kill off some main characters, but maybe ones we didn't care quite as much about compared to others. But, we did get that. So what did you think of that scene?
So I actually did not expect the death. I was not anticipating that, because like I was sort of figuring out like, okay, this is probably going to end with like Arin and Slade and the crew in Anwin, and then Melina's going to stay in Araya, and she's going to be the one who kind of like brings Araya together, because you're seeing all that tension with the different leaders of the kingdoms. And so I was like, okay, that's going to be how Melina gets her redemption, is she's going to end up actually kind of leading the kings and queens to be better. So I was really, really shocked when it happened, but I felt like it was a beautiful way for it to happen, like for her to decide. I love that. I love when characters decide that. For Dominic to go with her, like, just breaks my heart. It was so good.
And then they like stabbed each other with the same dagger, and it was just all like, it was like romantic, equal romantic and tragic at the same moment. It was like, if characters in romantasy are going to die, they need to die together in a loving, romantic
epic way.
Romeo and Juliet style. Totally got that. I love it. They're going to be together forever in like the next life or whatever, and I love it.
Yes, totally. Okay, so I have like an actual couple of worst scenes. Not that they just like, I just didn't love them, and I wish they'd been a little better. So for me, I just kind of felt like everything with Emery
Yeah.
really bummed me out because I loved her as a character in Gold. I thought she was so great, so effervescent, like, and then she like leaves the group and just doesn't really do anything. And it's
Mhm.
all she's really there to do is to show us what's happening on the other
Yes.
side of the bridge, but we
Yeah.
could get that from other characters. So I was just
Until
really
until the
disappointed with the
very,
storyline.
very end when she's connecting with Commander Riot,
Riot.
the
Yeah,
brother, his brother.
yes.
That was when she started to get all sassy again, and I
Yeah.
really started to like her.
And, like,
I
you're
agree.
kinda picking up on some vibes between the 2 of them, and I'm like, "Okay, are we
Yes, I
gonna get a spin-off
am, and
series?
I'm
Because
like,
I
"Are we
need
gonna get a
that."
is this going to possibly be a side story? Are we possibly going to get more? Or are we done with this world? I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, look, she certainly left that open, hasn't she? Like, we
Yeah.
didn't really, we kind of got the hint that there's some possible romance vibes there, but it hasn't gone any further. She could either just leave it or she could explore it.
Right,
Exciting
right.
to see. I agree with you. I think that, well, I actually have a big thought about this whole book, which is that I feel like she had a lot to complete in this book. She ended up with a lot of major plot that had to get completed in this book. And I felt a bit like we were banging through each thing, you know, Osric and Rissa connecting, Melina and Domic. Then we've got Oren and Slade and them all connecting. And I think because there was so much to go through, some of our side characters started to get a little bit lost because we
Yeah.
just couldn't give them the time that they needed to kind of have them still be big, you know, important parts of the story. They're just, a lot of their story got lost to the major plot. And I think
Yeah.
Emery was possibly one of the casualties of sort of that. But yeah, and that's kind of where that was the only thing I sort of felt like I actually feel like this book could have been 100 pages longer. I feel like it was
Yeah.
very fast paced. And while that's really fun and entertaining, I almost was getting too much. I didn't get much build up. It tended to just be like, bang, 30 pages in, we're getting Osric and Rissa back together. Bang, we're getting the payer and we get, you know, it was just like, as great as it was, I like a bit of slow burn. I want to earn it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, if you like, and yes, we could potentially say Gold was an entire book of slow burn, but I still needed a little bit in this book as
Yeah.
well.
And
So,
it would have been really nice. Honestly, I could have easily actually seen there being one more book after this. Which is interesting because I actually personally feel I talked to one of my friends about this, that the first couple books could have actually been brought together. Like book 1 and 2
yes,
could be one book, so that's just
100%.
like what happens with indie authors, like they those things kind of evolve as you go.
Yeah.
So it's like on the one hand, I could see book 1 and 2 being together, but I could actually see this book getting broken out into two separate books. It's crazy to me that this series was initially going to be 5 books. Like she was going to wrap it all up in Gold, and that I don't know how she would have done that.
Yeah,
With
yeah. And
everything
I
that
can
she had to do.
imagine that she probably would have had that pressure of going, I could make this another book, and people
Yeah.
being like, no, people want it closed, they want it
Yeah.
finished. You know? So it's, yeah, I can totally get that. But I think, look, while it is great and it does do it justice and everything, a little bit more would have possibly just given some of those side characters and things real life. We might have got a little bit more of that foreshadowing that we've spoken about that we would have really liked. Yeah, which is kind of interesting. I
Mhm.
put as the worst scene, which I guess is again a little bit in this foreshadowing space, was Slade's father covering them with the magical webbing. Apart from just being like, no, what is that? Like, what is that? And why does that exist in this world? And I've never heard of it before. And you can't just have something magical that just completely consumes them. And we're like, yeah, it just, it came out of nowhere.
It
It
really
was
came out of nowhere.
extremely
Yeah.
powerful. We didn't even really know how it worked. It just, yeah, I mean, totally hate Slade's father, and it was a really horrible scene just because the
Well, we
dragon
hadn't
dies and things like that.
seen him or seen what he'd been doing all book. And, it was kind of like it was whiplash because they were having this like special moment where he was taking her on his dragon for the first time, and she's like, wow, like this is amazing. And like, he's like getting her away from people while she's trying to process what she means to all of these people. And then like all of a sudden the dragon gets shot out of the sky. And like it
Yeah.
just was a little bit of like, oh gosh, okay, this is
Yeah.
happening.
All of a sudden you're like, oh my God. Yeah. And that's where I come back to really fast pacing in this
Yeah.
book. Like, which look, is not saying that this book is not amazing. It was so good. It was so enjoyable. But this is just us nitpicking here, just saying like what would have just like made it even more satisfying, more enjoyable would have just been just that could have still happened if we'd had that tiny bit of foreshadowing that like dad's up to something, he's preparing something, like we've got a big enemy here that we've got to be aware of because he's got something planned and he's planning to do something pretty epic to us. That would have been great.
I'm going to skip us forward a little bit in our like outline and talk maybe a little bit about some of our favorite quotes, because I feel like we have covered a lot of the other areas, and we can come back and talk a little bit more about Slade and Aaron, but
Yes.
because we've been talking about this so much, let's do a little bit of like, some of our
Mhm.
favorite quotes. So do you want to, we'll go back and forth. Do you want to run us some of your favorite quotes?
Well, I've done two things here. One is that I've actually gone and brought a couple of quotes from the whole series because
Ooh, that's
I kind of thought you've obviously got a couple of the primary quotes from this book, which is amazing. But I do have one, which is actually not it's like a whole 2 pages. So I'm going to yet again pull up my phone and read it out because I was like, I can't, there's not like, you need the whole thing. You need the whole thing to get the feel. But I'm going to share just 2 sort of quotes from the whole book that I really, really love. The first one. "You're not the villain in my story, I am," he says without remorse, his sharp jaw tight with tension. "But I'll be the villain for you, not to you." Okay.
So good. I love that. I love
Like,
that line. I remember reading that and just being like, oh, I'm so into that.
I know. I'm so into the I'm like a villain to everyone else but you. That's just, and I like, oh, Raven has done that to perfection. Perfection in this whole series.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do you want to give one of yours and then we'll back and forth?
Yeah. Okay. So this is what I only picked one from Goldfinch. So, and of course they are all from Slade. Okay. I'm going to read one that's kind of like connects to the one you just read. This is Slade. "I told her I'd be the villain for her, and I was. Now I need to also be the hero she would want me to be."
Oh, it's like, I know. And but like it showed the growth, didn't it? Like that he had sort of been in this really dark villain sort of space and that she had healed him, not just physically, but also somewhat mentally, that he was kind of at that stage now to be a bit more like, I actually want to be a good guy as well.
And this is, he says this when he's like, he now knows that she's in Anwin. He's desperately trying to get there to her, but he also knows that he has to help Araya because she would want that. And so like, even though it like pains him to be away from her, he stops to help Araya. And that's so good.
So good. So good. Okay. All right. I am going to give you my big paragraph. Okay. This is, and it's too much, like you need to get the vibes, right? You need to get the vibes.
What book is this from?
This is from Goldfinch.
Oh,
This is Osric and Rissa. And I was just like, I can't pick one piece. I have to like pull out a couple of chunks. So bear with me, guys. I'm going to read it to you. Okay, so this is Osric to Rissa when she has just come back from nearly being dead, and this is like page 39, so early in the book. "But while you were fighting for your life unconscious, I was very fucking conscious. I watched every minute of your suffering, but I wasn't sitting there just for fucking guilt. You want to know what I felt?" "What?" I asked breathlessly, unable to even attempt to be snippy. "So fucking devastated that I wasn't going to tell that I was going to lose you," he replies. Stark honestly, I can't talk. Stark honesty rumbling over his gravelly voice, that I was going to lose you before I could tell you that I love you. That's the first one. And then, next part. "You almost died," he says again, "and I'll never fucking forget how close it was. Just like I won't waste any more time now that we've gotten a second chance. We can't fight this anymore, Rissa. I'm claiming you as mine." I stare at him, mouth open and closing like a struggling fish. "Are you out of your mind? You can't just claim me," I say shrilly. "I just did. My back stiffens. I am an independent woman. I decide who to be with. You'll decide to be with me." My teeth grind. "You cocky son of a bitch."
So good.
This is why I love Osric and Rissa, because it's just so just like, she's like, "I'm an independent woman," and he's like, "You'll pick me." Like,
fine.
And then you're like, "Yeah, I will, but I'm still going to be angry while I'm doing it." Okay.
That's so good. I love them. I wish they had like their own book, honestly.
Same.
Like Tower, as much as I hate when this happens in series, I also like, it would have been good here, like a Tower of Dawn situation, where like they go off and we just see their romance. Okay, this is my quote, and this is also Slade.
Mhm.
There is no growth without rot. There is no sun without the dark sky, and there is no me without her. Ooh, loved it. I loved
Oh,
it.
so beautiful. So
Yeah,
beautiful.
so good.
It was, yeah, top 5.
Um,
Top 5 FM
it's
MMC.
really good writing at times.
Mhm.
What do you feel is the best use of a romantasy trope?
Well, dragons and wings. Like,
Yeah.
I know it's not exactly a trope, but I was just like, I love dragons. I love wings. I love that she went, let's just do a shadow dragon. Let's just do a dragon that breathes fire and rot. And I got such a shock at Oren's wings. Like, that was, and I don't know how I didn't kind of see that until that point with the ribbons and stuff like that. And that maybe they connect and turn into wings, especially when the whole book is called Goldfinch, like obviously suggests like a bird and flying. So, but I still got that shock and I kind of love that. So that kind of is my first, the sort of that was just a great trope and a use of a trope. How about you?
Yeah, for me, it's the pair bond.
Yeah.
It's like taking the mating bond. I love that she kinda gave it a different name, a different kind of a little bit different
Yeah.
idea, um, and then just, like, the way that it interacted with other tropes, like, with the magical amnesia trope, with the, like, we're, like, across the world trope, and we're getting these, like, several both in Gold and in Goldfinch, these like side by side kind of moments that they're both experiencing, not
Yeah. I
together. Like
love how
that
she did
is
that.
so cool. Like that is like a very unique way for like mates, fated mates to be done. I thought that was
And I
really
love how she did it even where like one is upside down and one is the right way. She really had these two halves coming together and that
yeah.
was really beautiful and amazing. I even love how, and it's probably what is done in Sarah J Maas as well, but the animal need, once they
Yeah.
kind of came together, they had this need to complete the bond.
Yeah.
And to the point that they're hooking up in the boat on the way to the cottage all by themselves. And it was just
Yeah.
perfect. That was just your
That is my peak romantasy moment. So that's for the next category, peak romantasy moment for me. It's like when they're, as you say, cooking it up in the boat, and then they like need to go inside, and she's just like, "No, you can't. You have to like keep holding me." And they like walk up the stairs, basically still cooking up. It was so silly. And, I thought it was, like, very like, that's, like, one of those things where it's, like, so silly, but we still love it and eat it up.
exactly. It's like the only thing that would have made it better for you is if there'd been a hot spring somehow thrown
Yeah,
into that
of
as
course.
well.
I
Like,
needed
and
that
that would have
boat to be
just
on a
taken
hot
it.
spring, and then
Yeah.
they just decide to jump in. That is what I really needed, but alas. No hot
But no,
springs in any of these books. Oh, no, that's not true. There is a hot spring in, I think, book 4 when they're doing that competition and they're in that one place. I don't know. I think there's a hot spring. It's hard. The 6th book. I've read these over several years. I
you
can't
just
remember.
inserted one in there. I can't recall a hot spring, but there's often something where an opportunity to get clean. So
Yeah. Maybe I'm
we
thinking
didn't
of a
have that
different
confirmed
series.
that they'd had a chance after writing for a few weeks on his
Yeah.
magical bird, whatever that he was flying on, that he managed to get clean, but we don't really care because we were just happy they were finally connected and they got like, and especially after yet again all the pain that Oren had been through. And I was kind of glad that she didn't sit with that for too long, that pain of possibly just being captured again, being imprisoned again, losing her memories.
Yeah.
She didn't sit in that space for too long and have
No.
too much trauma from it. She really, I think they just really had it that mating bond, that pair just really healed both of them. And now that they were together, they both just felt so healed and connected. And so it was really nice to finally have our characters in that space, which was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just looking through our outline. I feel like even though we have skipped a bunch of categories, we've talked about all the things in those categories.
I think we have.
Is there anything that surprised you about the book? I
Well,
thought
yeah,
that, like,
go.
the way that, I mean, we've talked about this, but I felt like the way that Melina's storyline kinda wrapped up surprised me a lot, and that's a bold choice, and I liked it.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've said it before, like my theory had been that Slade was going to get wings, but Slade ended up getting a dragon, which I was like, okay, that kind of trumps wings, like fair enough. And then Oren getting wings, they were things that I did not predict and I was very, very surprised by. Again, I agree with you. I also got super surprised by Melina. I actually got quite a few surprises in this book, which was quite pleasant because normally I
Yeah.
can kind of predict. And it was really nice to have a few things that definitely surprised me. So yeah, they were
Mhm.
probably my biggest surprises.
Yeah. Okay. How do you rate this book?
I give it. Well, I will actually. Should we quickly talk about before we rate? Should
Okay.
we talk about any areas for improvement? Any areas that we felt like? I mean, I know we spoke a little bit about it, but
Yeah.
let's just rehash it again, just to talk about, I guess, both sides. So then we can kind of really accurately give
Accurately
our
rate.
rating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, did you have any areas that you felt like still could have done with a bit more improvement?
So I think we've mostly talked about it. For me, it's like the lack of foreshadowing for some really critical things, like the
Yeah.
dragon, some of those things, like we didn't ever really see his dad. And then just the way that some of the side characters were treated, Emery and Riot in particular, they just were
Mhm.
never all that interesting to me. I just, and they didn't really get fleshed out and they weren't ever really doing anything super interesting. Though Riot is the one who ultimately killed the king, which is
King
pretty
Carrick.
cool.
Yeah,
King Carrick,
yeah.
yeah, and that's like that's awesome. But on the other hand, I almost like kind of wish it had been somebody from Anwin who had like suffered under him as opposed
Well,
to
I
Riot who's
liked
human.
the fact that they almost had a human killing a fae and the fae king, and that kind of that it ended up being
That's
someone
true.
who was not powerful that ended up managing to
To
achieve
kill
that.
him.
It
Yeah.
was a really good kind of way to finish that off. But look, I have a whole little frustration about the pacing of this book because I did come away from it and just felt like I just got bombarded
Yeah.
with everything I'd wanted. I got all these shocks, all these surprises, all my characters coming together, the deaths, the love, the mating connections, and it was almost too much. And I can't believe I'm saying that because I feel like I should not be complaining about getting everything that I possibly want, but here I am complaining about getting everything I wanted. It came a little bit too fast, and I feel like when some things hit, you were almost still so overwhelmed from the last thing that it hit. It didn't
Yeah.
hit as
I
well as it could have. If it had had the appropriate build up, it would have been more. We would have had more foreshadowing, and we would have had more like, whoa! It ended up being Riot that kills the King Carrick. We would have had more foreshadowing that Slade's dad was going to do something really bad to them and try and take Slade's dragon and things like that. We just needed that little bit more time to kind of get there. I had a little bit, I felt like with Osric and Rissa. Obviously, as I said, I absolutely love them. They could really have had their own novella for me just
Yeah.
to have seen their love story come together because they're such a great little character. But I think once we had that initial connection with them, they quickly just became background characters that we just saw as little sidekicks here and there,
Yeah.
but they kind of disappeared, which was a little bit of a shame for me because I love both of them so much and
Yeah.
I'd connected to them. I actually feel like we maybe should have got Osric and Rissa's love story in gold. I kind of wonder
Yeah.
whether
I agree.
we actually probably could have, because that book felt a little underwhelming. It felt a bit like
It did.
we didn't get anything. We just sat there with him at her bedside with her dying. Oren and Slade never connected. We really only got Melina and Dominic, which you'd probably say is almost a side character connection. It would have been nice, I think, to have had Osric and Rissa in gold, and then we would have had more time for then just more of the focus on Oren and Slade and everything that happened in this book. So that was some of my maybe takeaway. Not that I'm sure Raven herself might look back and go, maybe I should have done it differently. But of course, once the books are out there, they're out there. You can't exactly go back. So
yeah, it's almost like Rissa and Osric were a novella that just got inserted at the beginning of the book.
yeah.
And it would have maybe been nice if they could have just had their own little like 100-page story, you know, wrap it up, and then we can go into Goldfinch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think, as I said, it just felt like she had a lot to get done in a book. And hence she had to bang out and maybe not give things as much growth as they possibly could have had. So it's still an amazing book. It gave us everything we've wanted from this whole 6-book series. It's been great to get to this place. We wanted to get to this place over the last 5 books, and it was so great to get there and get this all hitting where it was meant to. I think it was well executed. I'm just talking about good to perfection. This was a great book, great ending. If they'd done that, it would have just been true perfection, like absolute masterpiece. So yeah.
So are you ready to give your final rating?
I am. All right. Do you want me to go first or you go first?
You go first.
Okay. All right. I compare this book to Kingdom of Ash, like in that where the character begins, because now I'm going to assume that people have read Kingdom of Ash. If anyone is on here that has not read Sarah J Maas, like all of her works, like crazy. Okay, so block your ears now. But Kingdom of Ash, where you've got Aelin and she's being captured, she's being tortured, she is at her lowest of low, and we're kind of in a similar space with Oren. She's kind of in that same kind of thing. She's captured, she's being tortured, she has also lost her memories, and then we kind of see that healing and that big epic fight and war at the end and things like that. This is a little lighter than that, but and probably a little spicier. But I would say that would be my 6-star. So I have a 6-star category, and I only save that 6 stars for the best of the best. Kingdom of Ash would 100% be 6 stars, just 6 stars, no doubt about it. This is 5 stars for me. This is like, it was excellent. It was beautifully done. The whole series is wonderful. The characters are amazing. Hits where it needs to. There's just maybe those slight little simplicities or rush of the pacing that would have just really just lifted it that little bit further. But if you love Kingdom of Ash, if you love Sarah J Maas, Jennifer Armentrout, you're going to love this series. It is absolutely going to give you those same vibes and definitely going to love it. So for me, it's 5, maybe even a 5.2 if I just add that little extra for Slade and King Ravager and even Osric, because I love them so much. They'll give me a little 0.2 in there just for them.
Yeah. I don't honestly have a lot to add because I agree with everything you said. It is absolutely a 5-star read. It is some of the best romantasy that out there, truly. It's a absolutely fantastic series, and some of my favorite romantasy, top 3 for sure. And it just doesn't quite get to that next, like, 6-star level or whatever you want to call it, like epic, amazing, or what I like to say, like, you can't even rate it. It's just so good, right? Like, it's not quite there for me, but it's 5 stars for sure. Like, but like, look, all of Crescent City in my mind doesn't achieve that either, right? Like, we're talking about like, it is still very good. It just does not quite get to,
I feel like give Crescent City like 4 stars. Like, Crescent City doesn't even get to 5 for me.
I rated Crescent City 5 stars, especially like CC3. It's like way down in my estimation now. We need to, like, at some point go back and be like, okay, what do we really think about it now? Because, like,
the longer we actually want to go back on all those guys. We've actually said, like, in the future, we're going to, I want Sarah J Maas to give us a date for the next book. And then I feel like we need to start our ACOTAR journey, our Throne of Glass journey on this podcast, because we haven't done that. We've obviously read them, but for me, it's been ages now, like literally years. Like, I need to go and reread these, but I want to do them once we know when the next book's coming out. So they are on our agenda. We have not forgotten. We will give you those at some point. But I agree with you. I definitely don't, like, I would say I've enjoyed this 1,000 times more than I've enjoyed Crescent City, like, hands down.
100%.
Like, pretty much, actually, Crescent City would always be like a 3.5 star, and this is like 5.
5 star. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. All right. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Well, it's just so glad. I'm just happy to be back.
I know
It's so great to chat. I hope you guys have all enjoyed this episode. I hope you share with us your thoughts and theories. As I said, look, thank you so much, Allie, for putting me onto this series. I just loved it. It was really, really wonderful. I'm so happy. It's one of the best romantasy series out there. It is now completed, so you know that if you start it, you can read the entire thing. So for many readers out there, especially if you've just finished ACOTAR and things like that, and you're feeling like you've got a void, this is a great series to jump into. You're going to love it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. You got any final thoughts?
No, just that I'm sad, that this series is over and I won't have anything to look forward to, but there's a lot of other great romantasy series out there. This one to me is definitely very, like, epic, and I haven't, other than like Fourth Wing and Iron Flame and NSJM, there are series or books that I've read that I'm like, okay, they have the potential to get there, but, like, I still have to see book 2 or book 3 to really know if I'm going to feel like the series is at that level.
It's
series is at that level for me.
Yeah, I feel like this series had pain. It had pain right from the beginning, and to the point that almost the first book is kind of suffering. Like, you actually are just, like, suffering with Oren, and there haven't been many books that really explore that human emotion and psychology and them growing and coming out of it. A lot of books are more adventurous and more kind of, yeah. But look, there are certainly some other great ones out there. The ones that I recommended earlier, Kingdom of the Wicked and Rhapsodic, were also excellent series. But yeah, I don't know, those ones though fade into the background for me, whereas there are those that just don't. And I can't even explain what's different. I can't, like, you know, when like a book's it's good to great, it's like I can't, you know, like many of these books, you go, yeah,
There's
they're
that
great for some
little
reason. They
intangible
just
thing.
are. And then there's these books that just grab hold of your heart and then you can't let go of them and you become obsessed, like Akatar. And I honestly can't say what is so different about them. I'm going to have to deep dive and explore to understand that. But
Yeah.
they just do. This is definitely one that grabs your heart and holds on to it and doesn't let go.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. If you've made it this far, thanks for sticking with us. I'm so excited that we're back and we're going to be getting to some more one off episodes. And then starting very soon, we'll be publishing some of our countdown to Iron Flame episodes. So get excited for that. If you have not yet rated and subscribe to the podcast, we are actually really close on both Spotify and Instagram, or Spotify and YouTube, sorry, to being able to like monetize the podcast. So if you love us and you want to support us, the best way you can do that is to actually subscribe or follow on those platforms. Give us a review. That helps as well. You're always welcome to reach out to us on Instagram and email us.
I mean,
Yeah,
just
thanks for
subscribe. You
listening.
don't even have to listen to everything we're talking about. Just subscribe, and then you can just keep up with us on Instagram. We'll be appreciative. Like,
Yeah, true. Just subscribe. But yes,
enjoy chatting with us. We love having these conversations. For us, I don't have many people in my real life that I can talk about these books with. So I love catching up with Alley to do this. And hopefully you guys enjoy coming along on this journey too. And we love hearing your thoughts. We love your messages. We always try and get back to you. So please stay in contact with us. We love talking about it. And if you've got any ideas for future episodes, let us know. You know, we've got our like 1 year anniversary coming up. So that's going to be a bit exciting. We're going to have a bit of a party episode, some games maybe. And then I'm kind of like getting a little bit like, okay, do we need to shake things up a bit? Do we need to maybe explore particular things, like bring things to like, what are like our top like villain to lovers? What are our top morally greater lovers? Things like that. Like, do we need to be asking ourselves some questions, having some little fun episodes, mini episodes maybe, where we explore some different things. So let us know what you like, what you want to hear.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.